This is my friend's family heirloom. It's beautiful. She said it was an unfinished piece. Her mother made it years ago, and we're going to make it into a beautiful quilt. She decided if it was a quilt, she would enjoy it more. So she gave me this book and wanted me to use it as inspiration for the colors. The gorgeous floral will be the border, and I have this sweet, sweet little blue that I'll show you the fun thing we're going to do. I don't want to scare you because I don't want you to not watch, but we're going to do a teeny bit of beginner applique, and any of us can do it without even getting any skills. Right now I'm getting the backing ready to go underneath the doily. And I'm going to just call it a doily. It's a big giant doily, but it's a doily. So I'm measuring how much do I want on each side, and then I'm cutting it. And I'm making sure I'm cutting everything straight because I'm not going to do math. It's just too tricky. So my big trick is to just lay it on, being very careful as I prepare the backing that it's going to be squared up. So I'm looking how much do I want off that side, then I mark it, then I fold it, I get it all nice and ready, and then I make sure that everything is even. Whatever heirloom piece you have, you just make a background whatever size you need for it. Now I'm cutting the stop-eye border, and it is the right color because it's going to enhance the look of the crochet. It's the same. So I put right sides together, and I don't measure, I don't worry, I just lay it out, and I use the press method. When you press two pieces together, they're less likely to stretch. It makes it more likely to be the same size. As long as I'm careful and don't pull or push, it'll be close enough for government work, and it will all be amazing. So I'm pinning it on, I sew it, I do that all four sides, and then it will be ready to center the crochet piece in. Sewing on a small border will make it obvious if you're sewing straight. Try to sew on exactly the same size as you're going to sew the rest of the seam. And when you're doing borders, you can do 1/4 inch or you can do whatever size you choose, but be consistent with yourself and it will all work out. Be sure to stay press, which is ironing over the top of both pieces so that they kind of open better. As you open it, be really consistent in opening it so that there aren't any creases that show. The other important thing you have to do is trim the corners, and when you trim them, they must be square. If they're not square at this point, then it's going to look wonky when you sew the next border on. And then you just put on the last two little stop-eye borders and you do it the same way. I'm not going to measure. I'm not going to try to do it exactly because I don't even know how big that is and I don't want to play. So I just press it on and it will work well. And we are auditioning the next border to see, do we like how that looks? Yes! Is it going to be beautiful? Yes, it is. I decide how wide it needs to be and then I cut it so that I can have the whole base piece ready before we ever start attaching or doing anything with the crochet. Weirdly, this outside border feels directional to me, and because it's directional, I'm deciding which way I want every strip as I sew it on to face. If I think the downside is one direction, then I like to put it nearest to the quilt body. That is what I'm doing. And so after I press it on, then I pin it, and I do exactly what I did with that other smaller border, and I sew it as consistently as I can, as square as I can, and then I press it open as square as I can. And this is the color that gives the feeling that she wanted in that book. As I lay it out and look at it and decide, okay, it doesn't lay straight. Crochet doesn't lay straight. So I'm going to have to decide how and where to place it so that it will work. I'm studying for balance and I decided it needs a little bit of applique. Now don't leave, this is so simple. I just put this fabric, it's the light blue that I'm making flowers out of, right sides together, and then I'm freehand cutting around with the realization that I'm going to need a 1/4 inch seam, so I want it to be just a little bigger than I actually want it to be in the end. There's no rhyme or reason, simple petal shapes. Now I'm cutting leaves. They don't have to be exact, they don't have to be perfect. And with this funky, cool fabric, I cut out the color I want of the top leaf and then I just place it right side together and cut out a square. Next, we're going to sew all the way around this petal. That's it. It's simple. It's easy. We just put it on. So the petal is two pieces of that shape and they're touching each other right sides together, and we simply sew around it with a 1/4 inch seam all the way around and then a little past. So we're sewing it completely closed. That's the fun. As the petal is done, I pull it apart and get it so there's only that bottom fabric, and then I cut a slit in it. The slit has to be big enough to turn it inside out, and I trim around the circly parts. When you do that, you just go close to the seam, and it helps it when you turn it. I'm turning it, and I'm just putting my little fingers in there. I get my little finger and run it along the whole part of the seam, and that opens up that petal wonderfully. And as soon as I have it all the way open, and here I'm using a pin to open it the rest of the way, I'm going to press it. And I don't want the bottom piece to show from the top piece. They're the same, so it won't be tragic if it does show, but I'm going to try to have it so it just shows the fold of the top piece, and it is ready to applique. If you've never done this method of applique, it really is something fun to try, because it's like a beginner applique style, and it's not as exact as when you do hand applique, but it's exact enough to make really amazing beauty. Notice I'm sewing the leaf with the whole big piece still on the bottom. It's easier to do, and then I can trim that piece off the exact size of the leaf after I've sewn it. And notice I trim the tips off, because that will just make them more pointy when I turn it inside out. I do the inside out way the exact same way as the petal. I pull it, I make sure I'm cutting the bottom. For the leaf, I picked the sweet, softer colors for the top of the leaf, so I want to make sure that I'm getting those sweet, softer colors to be the top of the leaf, because this is special fabric. I always use a pin so that I can make sure that it is folded and turned as evenly and as best as it can be. And I always press and try to make sure it's going to lay properly on the piece. I make all the rest of the pieces I need, and this is just a fun, happy process. It's so not complicated and so simple to do. I check and make sure, yes, it's going to have the slit side down. Do not applique it with the slit side up, or you will be so sad at yourself. I'm just going to lay out the petals and try to figure out how I can lay them so that they look balanced. She gave me buttons that went with this quilt. She wanted me to use the buttons if I could, because they also belong to her mother, who made this crochet. As I lay it out and as I try to get a feeling of beauty and balance, then I'm just being creative. I just lay them where I want, and when I like how I like them, I use this pen and mark where I'm going to put them when I'm ready and done, very lightly. A skinny little barely shape of the leaves. I do a dot for the buttons, and I leave room that I'm allowed to change my mind if I want. And the leaf, I do a definite leaf shape, so I will remember that that's where they go. I also have laid out the crochet so that it's centered enough that it feels good. It's not going to be exact. That's just the life of crochet, but it's going to be beautiful, and that's what matters. After I know I like where everything is and I have all my applique planned, I start pinning the crochet exactly where I plan to sew it. I have to sew it on exactly, so there is a pin on every single spot, everywhere around. I have it even enough. I didn't measure anything. This is just by eye, and then I put it on my long arm. I know that not everybody has a long arm, so I understand. I do know people who have done this with their domestic machine. I think it would be more difficult if it were too thick, so you'll want to do thinner stuff if you're doing it with your domestic machine. The long arm is more forgiving for thickness. You can also hire a long arm quilter that can do this for you, and that's why I'm doing it for my friend. She isn't even a quilter. Here's the scary part. Lots of people freak out that you're just putting stitches on top of this beautiful antique crochet. Don't worry, I warned her. Once I do this, you can't get it off. I'm going to nail it down in every way that I can. You don't really see the stitches. What you see is the effect of the stitches. You want to go close enough so that it doesn't pop out or stick out, but you want to go around things that you want emphasized. For example, these have the petals. They're so thick, even if I wanted to quilt across them, I couldn't. They're too thick. But I can go close around them, as you can see me doing, and that will kind of make them pop up and be really, really beautiful. It gives texture to the piece and makes it really stand out in beautiful ways, especially if you've practiced this a little and know where to stitch. As I'm quilting this, if anything sticks up funny at all, I just nail it down some more. You're in charge of it, and you just take control and do what you want to make it look the way you want. I want you to see how beautiful this is as it sticks up and shows off this pattern. The buttons look great. I hand sewed them on after I quilted the whole piece, and the applique right here, I just sewed around on top with my long arm. I did it as I quilted it. So I put it on, sewed around the edges, put texture on it, and called it a day. And I just think it turned out beautifully. I did beautiful quilting. It looks great, and I can hardly wait to give it back to my friend. This is such a great way to honor that antique, wonderful piece of crochet that you have from an ancestor. Stay merry and creative.